Wonder friends, Spuds and Spudettes, welcome to an Anxious Gamer Review, where I aim to advise gamers with moderate to severe anxiety if a game is right for them. Today I'll be talking about Maze. Maze is an indie-developed walking sim with a comedy style reminiscent of Monty Python that was released on December 1st, 2016. The graphics were quite beautiful, and despite the fact I was running on an older card at the time of writing, an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 970, I had no troubles running the game on its epic settings. The gameplay, as I mentioned prior, is effectively a walking simulator, where the vast majority, barring one small segment at the end of the game, is played by either walking or sprinting and clicking on things to interact with them and solve the often silly puzzles. So nothing extravagant here to write home about. But with walking simulators, I feel that very often the gameplay isn't the strong suit of the titles, and more of a means to an end. What is that end, you may ask? I feel is very much the story. By means that are never truly explained, you wake up in a cornfield next to a river and press forward to figure out what is happening. It doesn't take long before you realize that the corn is very much alive, and you press deeper into an underground facility to figure out what exactly is going on. As I already mentioned, this is primarily a comedy game, and while never being too over the top besides one small companion who at times feels like a broken record, the jokes were somewhat subtle and I found myself chuckling a few times, but never an outright laugh-out-loud situation. But the humor and the mystery that seemed to leave more questions than answers at nearly every turn kept me going to see how it would all end. The difficulty is non-existent, as there was only one or two parts that seemed like they could actually be failed at all, and they were so easy I couldn't tell you if anything bad happened should you fail. Also, any and all items that were either story essential or just collectibles were highlighted quite well for the most part, which should be a welcome addition to anyone who would feel compelled to collect everything. I do have a couple of nitpicks. The first being there were no subtitles for any language, which I found a tad off, considering this title leans so heavily on its story, and the other nitpick might not be such a big deal for people who don't do Let's Plays. But you do get a companion not terribly far into the story who travels around with an adorable squeaking. At least at first. It does feel like it is a bit grinding at times, especially as it did not pause while trying to read one of the many item descriptions during the game. Despite this particular shortcoming, I personally enjoyed all of the characters, and the one that falls under the broken record that walks with squeaks turned out to be my favorite, so it definitely has a way to overcome the shortcomings. In total, I'm going to give the graphics and audio both a 3. They were beautiful and well done, but nothing that truly stood out in this day and age as far as photorealism or over-stylization is concerned. The gameplay gets a 3. It was a simple walking simulator, nothing to write home about, but also nothing to complain about. The characters and story get a 5 though. This is where I felt the title truly came together. The difficulty is getting a 1, and the danger to one's anxiety is also getting a 1. I could say people struggling with this title, if they struggled from attention deficits and needed constant and strong stimuli to avoid anxiety issues, or if someone had an obsessive-compulsive desire or need to collect absolutely everything, there are a few times throughout the story where you can no longer go backwards, so if you miss that, you would have to replay that particular chapter. So, barring those two exceptions, I feel like, for the most part, nobody would be terribly anxietied by playing this game. So, do I recommend this game? I always find it to be a difficult task to decide whether or not to recommend indie games for their price tag, as the price they are asking for how much gameplay is to be had often seems to be on the lower side. But with the AAA industry getting worse and worse, I feel that it is more important now than ever to support these small indie developers. So, with virtually no difficulty and an incredibly minor anxiety risk, I feel that this title would be an excellent addition to anyone's collection for the $5 to $10 range. However, if you are in no way, shape, or form strapped for cash and looking for an incredibly unique but short journey to eat up one of your evenings, this would make an excellent addition to your collection.